Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at a very special game from the 8th round of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, which is being held in the city of Wijk aan Zee and in the country of the Netherlands. Now, this event has had many ups and downs for many different players, but today we have a big match between Alireza Firouzja, widely considered to be the strongest junior player in the world, and the current world chess champion Ding Liren. Now, for Alireza, tournament got off to a very good start. He won a couple of games early, was in the big chase for first place alongside Anish Giri, but he has recently stumbled a little bit, having lost 2 games to Zhu Wenjun, as well as yesterday defeated Santosh Gujarati. Now, on the other hand, we have the current world champion, Ding Liren, who has not been very active in recent times. He started off very slowly, a lot of draws. He won a nice game in the middle, but then he lost a game to Praggnanandh from India, and it's been very stable ever since. So without further ado, let's jump right into the action. So we have Alireza with the white pieces, and he decides to open with the move 1d4. Ding Liren plays knight to f6. We get c4, e6, knight to f3, d5, knight c3, and now Ding decides to play c5. And this, of course, is the classic semi-trash, which I myself played against Ding Liren in the fateful final round of the Candidates Tournament in Madrid, Spain in the year of 2022. So after c5, we get this move e3 being played by Alireza. Ding plays knight c6. We get a3, dc4, bishop c4, a6, bishop a2. All very standard stuff thus far. So Ding plays b5 here, trying to expand on the queen side, take some more space. Additionally, he wants to fianchetto the bishop to b7 and use this long diagonal down the road. Here, Alireza plays the move queen c2. We get pawn takes pawn, and now this move bishop b7. Ding's idea, very simple. He wants to maybe put pressure on the pawn on d4. He also wants to finish development and go rook c8 to put pressure on the queen on c2. But Alireza has a very devious idea in mind, which is to play this move d5. Now, I haven't actually checked to see if there's a standard theory or not with this move d5. I suspect it is not standard theory based on Ding's time usage here, using a couple of minutes before capturing. Nonetheless, it's a very creative idea. What Alireza is aiming for here is he wants to go for a very classic setup. He wants to get a position like, let's just say bishop g5. Let's just say black goes bishop d6, castles. White gets like rook d1 here, for example, and you get this sort of situation where white has rooks on the open files. Pressure on both of the diagonals here. Also, you can even go bishop b1 to create the battery and threaten to win the pawn on h7. So it's very difficult. So Alireza sacrifices this pawn here for very quick play in the center of the board. So the game continues with bishop g5. We get the move bishop to e7 here from Ding, trying to break the pin towards the knight on f6. If you were to play bishop d6 here, for example, like in the line I just mentioned, white could even just take on d5 right away, and due to the pin, black cannot recapture. White can castle, go rook d1, and everything is very well placed here for white. So we got bishop e7 from Ding Liren. Alireza decides to play rook d1, trying to put pressure in the center of the board immediately here. Now Ding plays the move d4. We get this move castles, Ding castles, and now we have rook fe1. Again, Alireza has achieved the optimal setups. Rooks are on the d and the e files. He's got pressure on both the diagonals. Now it's a question of whether black can simplify with some trades in the center of the board, or will white be able to create even more threats before black can do that. So here Ding plays the move b4, and this is a move that Ding played after a very long think. Now, one of the things in chess that you will see is what we call tells. Very similar to poker, where the tell in chess is when your opponent plays the opening phase of the game, they blitz out a lot of moves. It's very clear that it's something they prepared at home prior to the game. But when they go into a very deep think after they've been moving relatively quickly, it's a clear sign that they're now out of their preparation. So I don't know if rook fe1 was necessarily the first original move from Alireza that Ding had not looked at, but either way here, he uses basically 25 minutes before playing this move b4 in this position. Now Ding probably had a lot of things to think about. First of all, he could have played a move like rook c8, for example. Now the reason rook c8 is actually very bad, and we'll see it in the game as well, is white can play bishop to b1 here now, threatening to checkmate on this long diagonal. Say black goes queen c7, takes, spaghetti-o, we have the classic checkmate. So Ding probably was worried about bishop to b1. Also, there are other moves like queen b6 maybe. You could even go queen c8. A lot of different ideas in terms of what to think about. Nonetheless, for Alireza, the great thing is pretty much no matter what black plays here, with the exception of a move like pawn takes knight here, giving up a queen, for example. Say black plays b4 like in the game, or even queen c8 here. White always has this very nice idea with bishop b1 to create the threat towards the pawn on h7. So here Ding plays move b4, and now we get bishop to b1 anyway, threatening to take the knight on f6 and create a checkmate on h7. White does not want to take on b4 because after knight takes pawn, if you move the queen, black can trade the bishop for the knight, take this bishop here, and just like that, after say, I don't know, rook c8 for example, black should be completely fine. White no longer has any attacking chances on the king side whatsoever. So Alireza goes bishop b1, we get g6 of course, stopping white from checkmating on h7. And now Alireza sacks the rook with this move rook takes e7. This is a phenomenal sacrifice here. It's actually I think the only move even to keep the advantage. If white does not sacrifice the rook here, it's very hard for white to play for the advantage anymore. If white were to take, once again black can take the pawn with the knight. He'll take the knight on f3, and once white doesn't have threats towards the center with winning the pawn on d4 or threats towards his king side with the pawns on g6 and h7, white is simply in a lot of trouble. So Alireza sacks the rook here, and now Ding decides to capture back with the knight. He cannot capture with the queen here because then white has knight to d5, forking the queen and the knight at the same time. You move the queen, I take the knight, and now after say queen d2, white has a knight and a bishop for the rook. There are a lot of weaknesses with this king on g7 here potentially being checkmated, and it's just totally hopeless. And if you take this knight here on d5, I take the queen, you can take back, but after say takes, white will have a queen for a rook and a knight, and white should be winning in the long term. So Ding decides to capture with the knight here. Logical move. He's still threatening to win the knight on c3. He also might be able to trade the bishop on b7 for the other knight on f3. So Alireza plays rook takes d4, knight guards the rook. Knight guards the rook here. You also pressure the queen on d8, and there's still pressure towards the knight on f6. Here Ding plays move queen c7, which is a huge mistake. What Ding had to play here was a sort of difficult move to find, which is knight fd5. And the computer says after a takes b4 and maybe queen e8, white is better here, but it's not completely clear cut what's going on. In fact, the best computer move here is rook to e4, which to me seems very, very difficult to play as you walk into all kinds of ideas like knight takes knight, where the rook on e4 is under attack. Sure, after rook e7, queen 6, queen c3, white is winning because you have a bishop and a knight for the rook, but nonetheless, it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened. But instead Ding plays the move queen c7, which simply blunders a very basic tactic here, which is that white can play knight to e4, and now white's attacking the queen on c7 but also the knight on f6 as well at the same time. Here Ding decides to trade the queens. If he were to move the knight here, avoiding the capture and guarding his queen, white can simply trade the queens, take the knight here, and if rook e8, there's knight f6 with a fork, and if you go like rook to, I don't know, b8 for example, white can even just take the pawn, bring the bishop back, and with a bishop and a knight for the rook and an extra pawn to boot as well, white should be completely winning. So instead Ding decides to take the queen, and now Alireza correctly captures the knight here on f6, checking the king first. Black would love to go queen b1 with the classic ice skater, but you can't since I will capture your king. So we get king g7 from Ding. Alireza captures the queen. Now we have rook a c8, bishop to b3 is played. Sorry, not bishop b3, knight g4 is played first. An excellent move here from Alireza, because if black takes the bishop on c2, now there's bishop f6 checking the king, and after king g8, knight h6, spaghetti-o, the king is stuck in the corner and you lose the game. So knight g4 is a very, very nice move here, and I actually kind of suspect that Ding might have missed this. He probably thought that white could move a bishop, for example, but after takes, and knight f5 here, or even h6 potentially, it's very, very hard for white to play this position. So Alireza goes knight g4 first, threatening this mate with bishop f6, knight h6. We get knight to g8 being played, which stops both of these ideas on the spot. But now the problem is that when Alireza plays bishop b3, there's no longer a tactic involving the bishop and knight with h6 or knight f5, and now white has a clean bishop and a knight for the rook. But even beyond having a bishop and a knight for the rook, the big issue for black here is that white has the two b's, and this king on g7 is going to be very, very weak in the long term. And already here, as you can see from the valuation bar, computer says that white is totally winning. So Ding decides to take the pawn on a3. We get b takes a3 from Alireza, and now Ding goes rook c3, desperately trying to create some counterplay by attacking both the knight on f3 as well as the bishop on b3. Here Alireza plays rook b4 correctly, because what Alireza realizes here, black has this very, very passive knight on g8 here. White is going to use these two bishops down the road, and even if black takes this knight on f3, who cares, because the goal in chess is to checkmate your opponent, not win material. So we get bishop takes f3 from Ding. Alireza recaptures, Ding takes back, and now we have this great move knight to e3 being played. What knight to e3 does, it really boxes in this rook. If you look at this position, the rook can always go, let's say white goes king g2, the rook can go to d3, it can go to c3, it can go to f5. Many different squares are available. But when you play knight to e3, the rook can't go side to side. Also, you can't go to f5 because the knight covers the square, and now the rook is in serious danger of getting trapped. Say you play a move like rook to c8, for example. White goes king g2, you have no squares available here. Suddenly the rook is trapped and you'll lose the game on the spot. So here Ding plays h6, and now we get this move bishop to d1 from Alireza. King g2 maybe also is playable, by the way. Probably the reason Alireza didn't play king g2 is because after rook takes pawn, king takes, and pawn takes bishop. White should still be winning, but black does have 2 pawns for the bishop here, and there might be some chance to draw the game down the road if you can start rolling these pawns on the king side. Additionally, after bishop d1, if black plays rook takes f2 here, there's bishop takes h6, as happens in the game, where now white sacks the bishop for the pawn, black takes, white takes back, and here black only has 1 lone pawn for the bishop, and now it's mop-up time for Alireza. Technically speaking, this should be very easy to win without any difficulty. So Ding goes rook to d8 here, trying to go rook d2 or put pressure on the bishop at the same time. Now we get the move king to e2 from Alireza. Very good move as it stops rook to d2. Even bishop to e2 would have been winning, but after say rook d2 and rook a4 and I don't know f5, you kind of might see a ghost here where you worry about the pin, maybe the knight jumping to g4, maybe f4, some idea for counterplay. So when you go king to e2 here, now there's no entry on the d file here. Rook d3 and rook d2 are both out of the realm of possibility, and now we get rook to d6. Alireza goes bishop b3 here with the idea of maybe going bishop c4 and rook a4, or rook b7 to put pressure on the pawn on f7. And now the knight on h6 is also a very passive piece. f5 and g4 are not available due to the knight on e3. If you go back to g8, now I have rook b7 putting pressure on the pawn on f7. So effectively Alireza has made this knight irrelevant. In the game, knight cannot move, and therefore white has a very simple idea of going bishop c4, rook to a4, and winning the pawn on a6 without allowing any counterplay. Here Ding goes rook to f6, and now we get this move a4 from Alireza. Maybe bishop c4, maybe a5, rook b6 ideas. Really, it's a matter of choice at this point in terms of how you go for the win, but we know that the result should not be in doubt. So here Ding plays rook to c6, and now we get this move bishop c4. a5 is possible here, but after rook c5 pressuring the pawn, when white goes rook a4, black might have some idea with rook h5 to go after this pawn in h2. And again, you don't want to give your opponent any chances to get counterplay here in this situation, because of course you are facing the current world chess champion. So we get bishop c4, now rook c5, not an idea as you hang the pawn on a6. Ding plays f5 here, and now we get this move rook b7, king to f6, and here rook h7 is played. Now again, Alireza is showing great technique here. Of course, it's not really a situation where there, only one move wins. There are many different ways to win the game, but he is not letting Ding get any hopes of counterplay whatsoever. Now after rook to h7, the big problem for black is where does the knight go? If you go to f7, you lose the knight. If you go to g8, I take with the bishop. Can't go to either of these squares. If you go king g5, now there's this move h4 checking the king. If you take, you lose the horse. If you go king h5 just to guard the horse on h6, white can simply go king f3, and black's position is hopeless because say you play a move like a5, now I can go king to f4 followed by bishop e2 checking the king on the next turn, and black will have to sacrifice a lot of material in order to avoid losing the game, or I guess prolonging the game, because black will lose no matter what, but it's all just very hopeless. So here Ding plays knight g4 instead. Alireza gladly snaps the knights because now we're in an endgame with one less piece on the board. There is no counterplay. All of black's pawns are on the same color as the bishop. If maybe there was a way, for example, where you could get something like this just to illustrate, maybe black would have chances to draw with a 2 versus 1 on the king side, but because of the fact that white has this extra a pawn here, which stays on the board for the entire time, there is 0 chance to win. There's also ideas like rook a7 and rook takes a6 as well to simply win the a6 pawn. So Ding decides to play the move rook to b6. Alireza goes rook to a7, intending to snap the pawn, also snapping the pawn on g6 as well, and of course having a classic wooden shield in the middle of the board with this bishop on d3. So Ding goes rook to b2. Alireza plays king to e3. Ding plays the move rook takes h2, and now Alireza plays rook takes a6, checking the king on f6. Here Ding goes king to e5, and now we get rook to a5. Another very nice finesse here. Rook takes g6 would be winning for white, of course, after rook h3, g3, and something like a5, a6. But again, why do you want to give black a hope of maybe getting some counterplay and some miracle chance of a draw if you don't have to? Especially because when Alireza goes rook to a5 check, We get king to f6, and now king to f4 is played here. Black is going to lose his pawn on g4. He's still going to lose his pawn on g6 down the road, and for that reason, Ding Liren decides to resign the game. So Alireza wins a very nice game. Feels like a lot of this was pure preparation, great understanding of the setup in the opening phase into the middle game. Ding, in spite of trying to put up resistance, really had zero chance in this game. This is effectively what I would call a perfect game from Alireza. Almost every move in this game had some very solid purpose or plan behind it, and Ding really had no chance to possibly draw or win this game despite being the current world chess champion. So for Alireza, after losing a couple of games in the middle of the tournament, he's now back on track with this win here against Ding Liren, the world champion, and he may have some outside chances to win the tournament. We will see what happens in the remaining 5 rounds, but it is good to see him back in form and winning a very nice game here. For Ding Liren, on the other hand, this tournament, it feels like it's turning into a major failure for him. He won a game very early on, but now after these 2 losses to Prague and Alireza, it just seems like he's kind of in the middle of the pack towards the bottom half. Not a performance you would expect to see from the current world chess champion, and it remains to be seen whether he can turn it around. Now, he has not played much chess in recent times. He played this tournament in China about a week ago. I think it was called the China Chess Kings. He's playing in Tata Steel. Both events have not gone according to plan, and it seems to me, at least based on a little bit that I've seen, that it's really going to be interesting what happens for whoever is able to win the Canada's tournament and challenge him, because Ding is not playing a lot of chess. Even a little bit he's playing poorly, and I have my doubts as to whether Ding will be able to maintain his position in the world of chess as the world champion in the next year or two. But again, that's why we play the game of chess. We will see what the future holds for us. So on that note, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap from the 8th round of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament in Wijk aan Zee and in the country of the Netherlands. If you guys have not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we will be back soon with some more great YouTube-only content. See you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.